We live in a unique time, a time in history where the human race looks vastly different to what it's ever looked like in the past. We used to be very interested in ideas of religious, mythic, spirituality, and the non-material. And now, post-enlightenment, modern technological advances have ramped up, and we've discovered a new way of analyzing the world and seeing the world like never before. Unfortunately, it's not all good news, because what I've come to notice and realize is there are things that were lost along the way that we need to recover and re-understand. And I can illustrate an example of this in just one question. Why does the sun rise? Take a moment, come up with the answer. If you answered because the earth is spinning or because of the orbit around the sun, then guess what? You're in good company. You're exactly wrong. Wrong. How? Well, the problem isn't that you answered with that, because that's kind of right, except it's wrong because I didn't ask you what you think I asked you. The question I asked you was, why does the sun rise? The answer you gave was, how does the sun rise? And there's an important distinction there between those two questions. If I asked you, why did you turn your computer off? You might say something like, oh, because I was tired, I needed to take a rest. If I asked you the other question of how did you turn off the computer? You'd say something like, I pressed the button. You see? There's a crucial difference between those two questions. One is an idea of intention, purpose, and reason, which is why, and the other is about function and mechanism, the process of how it works. When we ask a why question and a how question, those are completely different questions. So why does our brain tend to do this with that question? Why is it so natural for us to take that why question and transform it instantaneously into a how? The reason is science has trained us to see the world in a new lens. Science, obviously by nature, doesn't ask or answer any questions of why. It's not in the business of meaning and depth and purpose. No, it's in the business of mechanism. It doesn't ask why does gravity behave a certain way. It asks how does it behave. It doesn't ask why is the universe here. It asks how is the universe here. And over time, we've internalized that way of thinking, that way of asking why questions. We've misplaced the why question and replaced it with how. And over time, why is just disappearing into nothingness. But I believe why still matters. And it matters in many areas and domains of inquiry. Like, for example, if I ask you, why did you do that? You know exactly what I mean. I'm not asking you how you picked up the glass and threw it at the wall. I'm asking you, why did you pick up a glass and throw it at the wall? You see? Why does the deer run away from the lion? Can we answer that? Yes. Why does the ant build its colony there, or build this anthill here? We can answer that. It's got a reason. And these are all psychological questions, questions of intent, questions of purpose and reasoning, preference and goals. And even in biology, scientists attempt to answer in this way a lot of the time. So if I say, why did the deer run? It says it's a defensive mechanism. It's running away because it doesn't want to die. Even more interesting is how uncomfortable science gets with answering these questions the further back evolution goes. If we go on YouTube right now and we type in, why did the Big Bang happen? The first video you're going to see is a video by a man named Brian Cox. And Brian Cox has a thumbnail. You can see it there. Why is crossed out and replaced with how. This illustrates very clearly how science treats why. It's not just ignored, it's actively rejected and framed as a bad question. Why is a bad question?
Well, the question is how.
But why do you think they push the word why away? What would be the intention, the purpose, the reason of doing something like that? And the reason is because why has implication. The question of why implies purpose, reason, intention. But if we have the question of why, then shouldn't it be answered? Just like how exists, so it needs an answer. There's a possible solution to a question. Or is why just an illusion made by the human consciousness? Our brains are just wired to see why where it shouldn't be. First of all, in every other example, other than the ones that make science uncomfortable, it's a completely valid question. If I need to prove why, Show me the proof of how. What do you mean prove why and prove how? Prove their existence, their validity in the universe. How is this inbuilt question that can be asked? There's a space for this question of how in the universe. But then I ask you, how do you prove it? And their answer is, oh, well, we keep finding answers to it. So in the same way, why has that same property? Which is, if I ask the question why, there appears to me an answer of why. So at the end of the day, what we're interested in figuring out is why a valid question? The universe isn't random. It's perfectly balanced. If you were to say there was no why in the world, you're also saying there's no reason it all works together. It doesn't, it's not on purpose, it's accidental. Why is chili spicy? Okay, random question, Joe. Why are you giving us this one? Well, science gives a reason. It's to stop mammals from eating it. So you see, spice in chili is actually not spicy for birds. It's only spicy for us, for all mammals. And the reason for that is because chili has evolved that mechanism because birds can help it reproduce better. Okay? So the reason why a chili is spicy is because it doesn't want to be eaten by mammals. It prefers to be eaten by a bird. So it can go far and wide, and then when the bird eventually releases the seed back out into the wild, it's somewhere else. And this is really good for chili to reproduce. So it evolved as a species with a goal in mind. And this is accepted by science. And there's plenty of this, by the way. But the sneaky thing here is that they give chili a reason and a why. A scientist will explain that to you, but then they'll deny that they have to do it. They call it anthropomorphism. Basically what that is giving human traits to non-human beings or creatures or things like that. Scientists warn against doing this, people like Richard Dawkins, because they say that it misleads people and in their understanding of the world and how everything works. But I can show you quotes where Richard Dawkins himself is actually going out and using anthropomorphic language. The reason is very interesting. From what I observe, it's because you can't get away from it. Richard Dawkins says in The Selfish Gene, the gene wants to preserve itself. Earlier I asked the question, why does the sun rise? Now, there's actually a few people that are watching this that are kind of unique to the rest of us, because they'll actually answer the question very differently to how we did. The way they'll answer is with things like this: to give us hope, to give us warmth, to bring life, to set the days apart, to inspire us. They'll say answers like this amazingly. Because when I went and asked many people, I was surprised to find a few people that didn't answer the way I expected. You are one of the few left that are speaking the language of why. And their answer is kind of moving because it has poetic nature. It deals with meaning. It deals with symbolism, and it has narrative. And that's a real answer of why. To the purely scientific minded, this is not going to be a good answer. It sounds like a post-event justification, like, how can the sun be here for us if we're here second? That kind of thing. But to them, I ask a question. If why exists, it needs to be answered. And if it needs to be answered, what is the answer? And if you say something like, well, there is no answer, it's all random, that's not an answer. So you've got to look for somewhere where there is an answer. And I would suggest you just start looking at the people who already have an answer. So the real question I leave to you who are scientific minded and to the rest of us who want to contend with such things, the question is, does why exist? Now, if you made it this far, I'm so grateful. I'm going to leave you with a little video with Brett Weinstein and Tucker Carlson, where they speak on this very issue just of recently, which is really annoying because I've been thinking about this for years and years and years, and the world keeps catching up with me. So, thank you. I'll see you in the next one.
Which story do I want people living by? Oh, definitely the narrative one in which you just simply surrender to the power of this thing and you allow it to be a guide. That's definitely, I don't want to live amongst people who view love as just a bunch of chemical reactions, yada, 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 right? That's a horrifying dystopia. But it doesn't make it untrue that love is mediated through neurochemistry.
Yeah, why can't both be true? That doesn't.
They are. That's exactly my point. That's exactly my point.
Right.
They are both true.
But only one describes the purpose of it, the origin of it.
Only one is useful for living.
No, but I'm saying the theist believes he understands why this is happening.
Right.
The atheist has no idea.
Well, in a sense.
So really, that's the question. It's not a question of how things happen. It's a question of why things happen.